Hi friends, it's good to be back with you again today. It's Wednesday, time for reading through the Bible, plain reading of the Bible. And we are in the middle of Psalms. And I need to make sure I have my glasses, which I do not. So I'm going to have to ask you to excuse me for just 1 minute while I go and get my glasses. Sorry. So I found them, and I'm ready to go. My name is Reverend Lou Kilgore. I'm the pastor here at the High Mountain Presbyterian Church, and happy to be doing this reading of the Psalms. And every Wednesday at around 11 o'clock, I'm here, and some of you tune in live, and some of you tune in later on, and for that I'm very grateful. Welcome. Today's psalm it's amazingly relevant to what's happening in Ukraine today. And I don't think it's just a projection on my part. As I've been reading through the Psalms in this season of Lent and heading up to Easter this week, I've been very aware of how the reading of the Psalm, I'm sure it's just in my mind, but how it connects to things that are going on in my life and things that are going on in our lives, in the world, in some setting in which we think about what's happening in the world. These readings have been, they sound like things that could be written today. Now, I'm going to tell you that when you listen to the psalm that we read, I want you to imagine that these two might be words that would be said, written, and expressed by many of the towns and villages throughout Ukraine as they experience the aggression of the Russian Federation and the Russian army. Just see what you think. I don't think I even had to say it to you until it would occur to you and you're listening to it. But let me encourage you then, just listen. I'll read. This is the commentators have titled this a psalm for royal psalm for international crisis. Now, so I'm not going to say any more. A royal psalm for international crisis. Strive, O Lord, with those who strive against me. Fight with those who fight with me. Take up my shield and buckler, and rise up in my aid, and draw out spear and spike, and draw out spear and pike to meet my pursuers. Say to my soul, I am your victory. They shall be humiliated and put to shame, the ones who seek my life. They shall be turned back and ashamed, the ones who devise my downfall. Let them be like chaff before the wind, with the Lord's angel chasing them. Let their path be darkness and slippery surfaces, with the Lord's angel pursuing them. For without cause they hid their net for me, a pit, and they dug to entrap me. Let ruin come upon him unawares, and let the net that he hid enmesh him. He shall indeed fall into ruin. Then my soul shall rejoice in the Lord, and it shall exult in his victory. All of my bones say, O Lord, who is like you, one who delivers the weak from the one who is too strong for him, and the weak and the poor from the one who robs him. Violent witness shall arise, They shall interrogate me on matters of which I am ignorant. They repay me evil instead of good. They lie in wait for my life. But when they were sick, I wore sackcloth. I afflicted myself with fasting, but my prayer returned unanswered. As for a friend, as for one like a brother to me, as with one mourning a mother, I walked about, dressed in black, bowed in grief. But when I stumbled, they rejoiced and gathered together, and they had gathered together against me. Oppressors, I didn't even know them. They tore me apart and would not desist. With profanities of derisive mockery, they gnashed their teeth against me. O Lord, how long will you look on? Rescue my life from their ruin, my existence from the young lions. I will thank you in the great congregation. I will praise you in the mighty crowd. Let not my enemies rejoice over me wrongly. For those who hate me without cause maliciously wink the eye. For they do not speak of peace, but against the quiet ones of the land they devise deceitful declarations. And they open wide their mouths against me and say, Aha, aha, our eyes have seen it. You have seen it, O Lord. Don't be silent. O Lord, do not be far away from me. Awake and rise up to my defense to contend for me. O my God and my Lord, judge me in your righteousness, O Lord my God, and let them not rejoice over me. Let them not say in their hearts, Aha, just what we wanted. Let them not say, We have devoured him. They shall be both ashamed and humiliated, they who rejoiced in my misfortune. They who wear shame and ignominy, they who made themselves mighty at my expense. They shall shout out and rejoice, they who delight in my vindication. And they shall say continuously, May the Lord be magnified. He who delights in his servant's peace. Then my tongue shall proclaim your righteousness, nothing but your praise all day long. Even as I'm reading through it this time, I can't help it. I imagine this would be a psalm, words that would be on the lips of every Ukrainian person who is in the middle of this war-torn, scorched earth destruction which is going on. Now let me set the context for you a little bit in terms of how this psalm functioned, what it was written to express. The person who the psalmist is writing about or writing for is the king of Israel. And just a little background, in these times, maybe even like in our times, nation states would be formed. Israel was a nation state at this time and had a king. And the king, in order to create a life that is peaceable and isn't always uprooted by boundary disputes and border arguments, would make treaties with neighboring nation states, equal kings. And they would get together, they would sign treaties, they would agree to be allies, not necessarily allies, but at least they would agree not to be enemies. These same kinds of human behaviors happen today all over the world. In both small provinces and in very large nations, we sit and we strike up agreements. Now, in these more ancient times, these agreements were attested to by gods, by the power of a god. You would swear to God, and you would promise by God that you would be faithful to the oath that you had signed. and this was common. A covenant would be made, an agreement, a treaty, if you will, between two nations. I will not invade you, and you will not invade me. Maybe they even had in the treaty agreements to buy and sell goods, economic exchanges for the betterment of each side. Now, when the treaties were signed, each party would call down on the other person curses if they did not fulfill their treaty. If it was a peace treaty and your nation state invaded my nation state, you should expect that God is going to reap on you a vengeance like you never wanted to have happen. And there was language about this. There were agreements that, you know, if you violate this treaty, God will see to it that you are punished. And the punishments would be laid out extensively. Now, one of the things that the kings would agree to was that if something happened to one king, the other king would not celebrate that. In other words, if there was a hard time going on in the nation to the north, the king in that treaty would agree to be sympathetic, to care about what was going on, especially if, let's say, the king got sick. If the king of a neighboring nation state got sick, the king of Israel would agree to show signs of solidarity, if you will, with the king. Now, having said all of that, I don't think you would pick us up in the first reading. But what's going on in the background here is the king of Israel is just destroyed because what's happening in his life is it appears as if he's been accused of breaking the treaty. And it appears also, when I read it the next time, you'll hear it more, that evidently the neighboring king, his mother died. The king of Israel in the psalm is claiming, in spite of what anybody said, when his mother died, he put on sackcloth and ashes. He mourned. He did visible mourning in solidarity with the king of the nation state. He is accused of not doing that. He's accused of celebrating the misfortune that has come to a neighboring state. And because of that, he's being attacked. And in those attacks, they are calling on the fairness. It's not an unprovoked attack like we hear now, but he is calling on witnesses to verify that he fulfilled the covenant of grieving with the other king and not celebrating his misfortune, the death of his mother. But the accusers are calling down on him the curses that he agreed to because he has violated the treaty. And the king is saying, it's not true. It's not true. I have fulfilled the treaty. I have evidence. But he's being attacked. He's being invaded. They're unleashing hell on him because they are saying that he is guilty of violating this treaty. And so the king is calling on God to witness his innocence, to witness that he has done nothing, that he is not being punished because of what he did, and he's calling on God to get involved. Don't just stand off and watch, God. We sealed our covenant through appealing to you. Now you step in. I need you to vindicate me. I have not violated this treaty. And then he says over many periods, when you vindicate me, I'll be sure to celebrate you and to praise you in life for who you are, for the goodness that you bring into life. And that's the gist of the psalm in its context. But when you read it and you try to imagine that maybe a person, just a regular citizen in Ukraine or anywhere, in Syria or in other places where there is seemingly random, just violence being perpetrated against human beings, you can you can hear the language of the psalm and know that it would work very well in terms of expressing our human frustration at how violent and how unjust sometimes the world can be. So that's the psalm. That is the psalm for today. I didn't go through line by line because I'm looking at the commentator. He says the Lord was ultimately responsible for overseeing the integrity and faithfulness of the divine action, which was explicitly agreed upon. They would agree on the curses that would be brought down on each other if they did not follow. And again, in the psalm, the writer, the victim of this experience, the king or the person, however, prays that God will not remain silent and arise to his defense and to his aid. And as I was reading it, I was thinking, I think I might pray this every day on behalf of the people in the towns and villages, the children, the women, the men, who are just experiencing this, the attack of the young lions and the devouring in their mouths. It's inhuman. It's dehumanizing. And the purpose for the complete destruction, the complete leveling of cities and towns. Now, of course, on the other side of the border, the leader of the other nation is justifying what he's doing because he develops all kinds of accusations against this people. They're guilty. They're terrible people. They're Nazis. He accuses them of torturing people. It's so similar to the circumstances that this king pleads his case before God. And today, my sisters and brothers, I'm telling you, I am pleading their case before God. I'm pleading their case. The prayer, the writer of the psalm, is confident that his vindication would eventually come. I want to read to you what the commentator says. The crisis of surviving a foreign military threat was difficult enough, but what added to the frustration was the fact that the threat rose in the form of an ally, one toward whom the psalmist had behaved properly in every legal respect, innocent of any evil acts which might have justified the emergence of such an invasion and crisis. The king falls back on the ultimate defense of his nation, namely God, who, as witness to the treaty, perceived precisely where the fault lay with regard to the breaking of the treaty and regulations of human behavior. Hence, the psalmist's declarations of innocence and his desire to be judged do not rest in any false piety or self-righteousness. They are based only on the conscious awareness that the treaty stipulations have been faithfully observed. And if you've seen any of the coverage going now to Ukraine, the number of microphones that are put in people's faces, and the people say, we don't know why this is happening to us. The Ukrainian people are peace-loving people. We want to live in peace. And his prayer that defeat and disaster fall upon his once-time ally is not simply human vindictiveness, but a desire that the treaty curses would come into effect, therefore delivering the nation from unwanted crisis, and at the same time vindicating God as the Lord, and in this case, the King of Israel. I'm going to read to you from Eugene Peterson's translation of this psalm. I like it. I've been doing this regularly because I just think it's just wonderful to hear in Eugene Peterson's language the simplicity comes across. So listen now, and I'll read Psalm 35. Harass the hecklers, God. Punch these bullies in the nose. Grab a weapon, anything at hand, and stand up for me. Get ready to throw the spear, aim the javelin at the people who are out to get me. Reassure me. Let me hear you say, I'll save you. When those thugs try to knife me in the back and make me look foolish, frustrate all those who are plotting my downfall. Make them like cinders in a high wind, with God's angel working the bellows. Make the road lightless and mudslick, with God's angels on their tails. Out of sheer cussedness, they set a trap to catch me. For no good reason, they dug a ditch to stop me. Surprise them with your ambush. Catch them in the very trap they set, the disaster that they planned for me. But let me run loose and free, celebrating God's great work. Every bone in my body laughing, singing, God, there is no one like you. You put the down and out on their feet, and you protect the unprotected from bullies. Hostile accusers appear out of nowhere. They stand up and they badger me. They pay me back misery for mercy, leaving my soul empty. When they were sick, I dressed in black. Instead of eating, I prayed. My prayers were like lead in my gut, like I'd lost my best friend, my brother. I paced, distraught as a motherless child, hunched and heavy-hearted. But when I was down, grieving for them, they threw a party. All the nameless riffraff of the town came chanting insults at me, like barbarians desecrating a shrine. They destroyed my reputation. God, how long are you going to stand there doing nothing? Save me from their brutalities. Everything I've got is being thrown to the lions. I will give you full credit. When everyone gathers for worship, when the people turn out in force, I will say my hallelujahs. Don't let these liars, my enemies, have a party at my expense. Those who hate me for no reason, winking and rolling their eyes. No good is to come from that crowd. They spend all their time cooking up gossip against those who mind their own business. They open their mouths in ugly grins, mocking, ha ha, ha ha, thought you'd get away with it. We've caught you hands down. Don't you see what they're doing, God? You're not going to let them get by with it, are you? You're not going to walk off without doing something, are you? Please, get up, wake up, tend to my case. My God, my Lord, my life is on the line. Do what you think is right, God, my God, but don't make me pay for their good time. Don't let them say to themselves, ha ha, we got what we wanted. Don't let them say, we've chewed him up and spit him out. Let those who are being hilarious at my expense be made to look ridiculous. Make them wear donkey's ears. Pin them with the donkey's tail, who made themselves so high and mighty. But those who want the best for me, let them have the last word. A glad shout, and say over and over and over, God is great. Everything works together for good for God's servant. I'll tell the world how great and good you are. I will shout hallelujah all day, every day. Wow. I don't think you can miss the connections between the thoughts, the view, especially the pleading. There's so much pleading from among the suffering people. to the rest of the human population, please do something. Isn't there something you can do to stop this? We're doing everything we can do. And in this psalm, the pleading rises up from among the population to God. God, don't just stand there and watch. Step in, do something. Do something. And when you do, I know you will, we will praise you. We will remember to say good and noble things about you and your ability to defend us and to care for us. All right, my friends, that's our reading for today. Psalm 32, Psalm 35. Psalm 35. I'll see you next week. That will be the Wednesday after Easter. I hope that you have a good Easter season and a meaningful Easter season while we pray together around the world for this community of people suffering and being tortured. Tomorrow night here at the High Mountain Presbyterian Church in Franklin Lakes, we will hold a Maundy Thursday service, which will be communion, and that will be followed by the prayers and the words of the Tenebrae, which lead us in story to sort of experience the suffering of Christ himself as he was on trial and then approached his own crucifixion. Then Easter Sunday morning, we're here with the music playing and the bright lights. Hopefully the weather will be nice. We're going to have Jack's farm is going to bring a lot of animals, and the vitality of spring and the joy of nature is going to be on our front lawn. You're welcome to come and join in. I think Jack will be here around 9 o'clock, and I think he's going to stay until 1. But come on out, come to worship, and then after worship, invite you to linger a little bit and share in the goodness of life and spring and the creatures. God bless you, my friends. This is Pastor Lou signing off. Thanks for coming today and for listening in. God bless you.